other communities for political reasons. This is a well-coordinated series of malicious and false accusations of Gabra community and the CS by the Borana leadership meant to mislead Kenyan's authority.
Moving on, the Education Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, has emphasized to school heads that no child should be sent home for lack of fees. Magoha directed head teachers to use the money they have received from the government to meet the needs in the learning institutions. The CS was speaking when he was at Our Lady of Fatima Girls Secondary School in Kariobangi North.
All chiefs and sub-chiefs are currently mopping children who have not returned to school, with the provision that if children have not returned to a particular school but they are engaged in another school, then they are allowed to settle there. Money was released to schools, 4.6 billion to primary and 14.9 billion to secondary school. Because of that, we are implementing His Excellency's directive that no child shall be sent home for school fees. Let us not take this for granted. Mwalimu, no child shall be sent home for school fees. Yes. You can manage with the parents. You are healthy. You have legs and transport. Yes. You can visit the home and confirm that this one, they can pay so much. Rather than sending the child home, you go to the home to check which home you are sending the child to. If you are sending the child back to Korogocho, do you think the gates of heaven will be open for you? They will not be open for you. And then we have also said that soon, the next tranche of money, this was 50% value, isn't it? 25%, you're doing another 25%. This was 25%. The government, the good government of His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta will make another 25% available as soon as the conditions allow.
Moving on to Kenya-US relations, where President Uhuru Kenyatta has reiterated Kenya's determination to conclude ongoing negotiations with the United States of America and sign a free trade agreement. The president gave the assurance when he bade farewell to the outgoing U.S. ambassador to Kenya, Kyle Makata, who paid him a courtesy visit at State House, Nairobi. Meanwhile, Makata has bid Kenyans farewell as he exits from his position after 4 years. The former ambassador, who paid President Uhuru Kenyatta a courtesy visit at State House, Nairobi, said it has been the greatest honor being a U.S. ambassador to Kenya, and that U.S. will continue to offer its support to Kenya even after his exit. Now, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, has cleared 11 contestants for the KIAMOKAMA ward by-election in Nyaribari, Masaba, Kisii County. The mini-polls have been slated for March 4th and come following the demise of KIAMOKAMA MCA Kennedy Manya, who died in November last year. These, as campaigns for the seat continue to gather steam, with existing national and newly registered political parties entering the fray.
This is what we wanted. We've been fighting to get this. I want to promise you we're going to win this race with your support.
I believe strongly that given the opportunity, I will also make that particular road so that it's accessible. It will be accessible to make people to easily reach the place they want.
I also urge supporters from KIAMOKAMA, kindly, it's a time to change. It's a time to consider young youth like me that can really focus on how to improve our farming, our education, our road.
On to insecurity issues, where Coast Regional Commissioner John Elungata has issued a 2-day ultimatum to one of the warring communities in Madogo to return 48 goats, which they rounded up and drove away from a grazing field in the outskirts of the town. Addressing the elders from the two communities of Orma and Munyoyaya after a 4-hour closed meeting, Elungata said if the goats are not returned in 2 days, then the accused community should be ready to produce a similar number of goats to be withheld until the 48 are brought back. Several houses in villages occupied by the two communities in the outskirts of the town were also touched. Now, streamlining the Jubilee Party, NYANDARUA Governor Francis KIMEMIA has called for the streamlining of the Jubilee Party, urging the party's top brass to do away with the defiant factions ahead of the 2022 general elections. The growing political tension within the party has already seen the party split into Kieleweke and Tangatanga factions. KIMEMIA, who spoke after meeting the Registrar of Political Parties, Anderito, further called for the strengthening of political parties in the country in a bid to eliminate divisive politics and give the parties a national outlook in their representation.
Kundani izitolewe, hakuna serikali ambayo inakaa na madoadoa. So kama kuna madoadoa katika Jubilee, wakati umefika madoadoa itolewe.
Vyama zinatakiwa kuwa za with a national outlook, zikuwe za kitaifa kama vile governor anasema. Na kwa hivyo sisi hatuangalii mambo ya chama ya region fulani. Tunataka kuona chama ambayo inajulikana kutoka county moja mpaka ingine.
Tunataka vyama kama vitatu ama viwili katika Kenya ambazo zitakuwa na sera ambao inaendesha nchi yetu. Na ili wananchi tuanze kuunganisha wananchi wetu wawe kitu kimoja. Hasa vile rais amekuwa akitaka kuunganisha chama chake, kama ni ODM waingie ndani, kama ni ile ya Kalonzo ingie ndani, kama ni ya Musalia ingie ndani. Tuwe na chama kimoja ambacho kina nguvu na kinaleta makabila mengi kutengeneza serikali ambao iko na nguvu na inaweza kuendesha siasa zetu tukiendelea mbele.
Moving on, more than 20 candidates have been cleared by IEBC to vie in the London ward by-election set for March 4th. The by-election is expected to be a 2-horse race between Jubilee Party Francis Njoroge and the New Democratic Party candidate Pastor Alex Minor. They are expected to square it out, seeking to secure a majority of votes among the 18,380 registered voters in the ward.
Advice yangu kwa serikali yetu na kwa wanasiasa wote ambao wanafanya siasa ni kwamba tuweke maisha ya watu mbele. Katika chochote ambacho unapanga, ujue chochote unasema ama una plani ya kupanga hakitadhuru maisha ya mwananchi yeyote. Kila mwanasiasa ambaye anasema jambo ambayo inafanya mwananchi aumizwe kwa njia moja ama nyingine amefanya makosa mengi. Wanafanya kampeni zao kwa amani na kampeni zao zote ziwe ni za kuinua wananchi. Si za kuinua mwanasiasa, ni za kuinua wananchi. Huu si wakati wa kuangalia hata chama. Huu ni wakati wa kuangalia huyo mtu amefanya kazi gani hapo mbeleni. Na manifesto yake inasema nini. Msibebwe na vyama na majina kubwa kubwa.
Moving on, leaders from West Pokot County now want the government to stop the security operation in KAPEDO, led by Governor John Lonyangapuo. The leaders say dialogue between the two warring communities would bring their incessant conflicts to an end. They have also hit out at leaders from Turkana County, whom they allege have been inciting the violence and pretending to be trapped at KAPEDO.
Taitana na kina mheshimiwa na Nok na wengine kwa Turkana, ile shida wako nayo tuna feel sababu ni ndugu zetu, na ile shida tuko nayo wana feel sababu sisi ni ndugu zao. So lazima tuketi chini na tusemezane, tusitumiwe na adui. Na normally tabia kama hii huwa inapenda kusorora hii wakati ya siasa mpya, harufu ya siasa naanza karibia. Haona ya Uganda iko inaisha sasa, ingine yenye iko na itaanza kuhamia pande hii, tabia yenye iko na pembe siasa kwanza kuchukia na area hii, hatutaki hiyo.
Tuwe na ile rush decisions ama decisions ya hasira ya kutaka kuumiza wananchi bure sababu ya hasira kama hiyo. Pia sisi kama West Pokot tuko kwa amani na tuna hakika kwamba tukipewa nafasi tunaweza toa dawa ya hiyo furugu mpaka watu watiazi wapate kuwa na amani. Kwa hivyo let the government give dialogue opportunity, waweke kuongea nafasi.
Tunaambia serikali give us a chance, give dialogue a chance, give our county a chance, give our leadership a chance to talk to our people. We talk to our people. Na mimi nataka nisikie na mnasema na hii. Msisikie wale viongozi wa Turkana waliongea na mimi singependa kujibu wao. Nataka serikali wasikie. Hiyo mambo ya viongozi wetu wenzetu kule Turkana ya kuinsight watu yao ati they are under siege or they want evacuation ya serikali. Mimi nataka niseme na hii. Don't incite communities. Sisi si wajinga. How can you be evacuated in your own constituency?
Yes.
Don't incite communities. Kama mimi niko Pokot South, mimi nauliza aje serikali waniletee ndege kutoka Pokot South. Kama serikali inakuja kutoa mimi Pokot South na watu ya Pokot South watakana na mali. So hawa viongozi wali state manage. Hiyo ni uongo. Wanataka kunicite ati serikali ndio wafanye operation Pokot.
Now, with the news just in, ODM leaders are currently addressing the media in Nairobi. Let's listen in to that.
Yesterday, I understand Raila Odinga held a lengthy meeting with the chairs across the 47 counties, and one of the issues they raised is to back him 2022. So, who told you that? For the primaries with other candidates.
First of all, yesterday's meeting, the deliberations were captured in a press release, and we discourage you from inserting deliberations or resolutions that were not part of the press release yesterday. Number two, as regards Nairobi, everybody is aware that ODM played an instrumental part in pursuance of the handshake in getting Nairobi back on track. The motions to remove Governor Sonko, both the one in February that aborted and the one that succeeded by our majority leader, were moved by members of ODM. So that is the reason upon which we insist.
Details we shall communicate.
Yeah.
The very last one.
Not from you. Anybody else? Wacha watu wengine pia waongee. Is there gender balance amongst
The very last one. Do you have a timeline?
Chemtai, you are not saying anything today.
Do you have a timeline? Do you have a timeline when you're going to have the 2022 presidential candidate for the party?
The chair of the National Elections Board is here. She has been tasked with putting the advertisement in the newspapers within the next 3 days. That advertisement will set out the criteria for consideration and also the timelines to be involved in that particular process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Asanteni sana.
That was a live report from the ODM leaders who are addressing the media in Nairobi. It's time to take a short break. We will be right back.
When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
Watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back to TV47 Newsfeed. If you are joining us now, I am Mudhoni Minor. Now let's go back to the insecurity issue at Madogo, where Coast Regional Commissioner John Elungata has issued a 2-day ultimatum to one of the warring communities in Madogo to return 48 goats, which they rounded up and drove away from a grazing field in the outskirts of the town. Addressing leaders from the two communities of Orma and Munyoyaya after a 4-hour closed meeting, Elungata said if the goats are not returned in 2 days, then the accused community should be ready to produce a similar number of goats to be withheld within the 48 until the 48 are brought back. Several houses in villages occupied by the two communities in the outskirts of the town were also torched.
Agarsot sisi watu wetu tutaleta pale serikali ile mtu ametupa mishale ama ile mtu ametupa.
Ardhi ya hapa bado iko chini ya himaya ya serikali. Bado inalindwa kwa sheria ya community land. Bado inaangaliwa na county government. Kwa hivyo huwezi kuanza kuivamia na kujiuzia, kwa sababu utaulizwa nani amefanya adjudication, nani amekufanyia survey,